This is an automated storage and retrieval system within Oxygen Not Included. So we can take a look at what's going on here. I have a lot of these auto sweepers down here, and they are loading up conveyors, and these conveyors are feeding more auto sweepers up here that are sorting that into different storage containers. And those storage containers can be unloaded into conveyor loaders that go out to specific locations to feed various types of equipment. Now, an ASRS system is actually a very real thing within the world. So you can check it out here. It's actually on Wikipedia. These are used throughout the world in many different warehouses in order to store and then distribute material as needed. Here's an example of one of these in motions. They're using an AGV here that runs basically a CDLR and moves a pallet of material onto this system here. And then the ASRS system is going to then pick that up and then store it inside of these large racks. So these are very real things that work behind the scenes that actually allow our modern civilization to work the way it does, so that you can actually order things and then it, bam, shows up in a couple of days. So you can see how that actually worked right there, picking something up, moving it, and then storing it, which you can then call up at a later date when you need to move some inventory around. So that's the exact same idea that we're simulating here within the game. Or another good way of putting it, it's about as close as we're going to get to Factorio within Oxygen Not Included. Now, in my Ultimate Automation Challenge, I had actually mentioned that I want to design an ASRS system, and Kumar over here has actually been working on that and has come up with this design right here. So you can see his comment right down here. And this is about as compact as the system can be built within, this system as it is. So you can say that I've pretty much followed his formula right here as far as that ASRS system is laid out. However, there's some interesting things that are going on here, which is why I've shaped it this way. Now, in a previous version of the game, you could pick up and sort through different tiles. However, that is no longer the case here, as I can demonstrate. So you can see right here, there's actually a shadow. When I click on this auto sweeper, you can see that there's some background is highlighted in certain areas. And if that auto sweeper can actually get to the bottom tile of the storage compactor or the bottom tile of this conveyor loader, which we can see that it actually does reach up there, and it reaches up to just that that unit right there. If I just deconstruct that real quick, you can see that it reaches just to the bottom of that conveyor loader, so it can actually load that thing. It doesn't have to reach the whole thing, just the bottom tile that thing is sitting on. And that way the auto sweeper can pick up from any of these locations and can deliver it to any of these loaders. Just to kind of show what's going on here, if I deconstruct this, and if I put in a tile, a mesh tile here, what we will see is that the shadow is now being cast on this storage compactor. So even though if I were to switch this storage compactor to its highest priority, which would mean that everything around here wants to be sorted to the highest priority, you'll see that nothing is ever going to actually find its way into the storage compactor. Oh, it is, because that one is actually above it. So hang on, let me get away from that. This one should not be able to get to that. Yeah, so you can see that that one is not feeding that storage compactor at all. So the reason for that is simply because of this block is casting a shadow, so it cannot see through that. So if I get rid of that, all of a sudden you'll see that this auto sweeper can now reach that storage compactor, and everything is going to be sorted into that compactor. Now you can choose what you want to store inside of here. You can go up to 20,000 kilograms, or you can do less of whatever materials you want within these storage compactors. Now in this current setup right here, all of these storage compactors are actually dumb. There's really nothing going on here that's sending out any sort of automation signal saying that yes, we have acquired enough material and then we want to start up another process. However, we can do that if we swap out our storage compactor for a smart storage compactor. So this one right over here is available once you actually unlock its research. And then we can place it down here. It does require power, but I have power that is already placed behind this. So 60 watts right there. And then that gives off an automation signal. Now this automation signal is false until it reaches enough material. So let's go ahead and just set it up for any material for 1,000 kilograms real quick. And its priority will be set high enough to where everything sorts to that. Just talking about priorities real quick, since this is kind of a tutorial. How this works is that these auto sweepers here will load up whatever priority is highest around them. So as we can see that the sub priority here is 5, it is going to load into that. It doesn't necessarily matter. These can all be placed 1 in this situation because that's the only thing that they can do. And they'll still continue to do that. Now up here we have the receptacle. So what is going to happen is, as the conveyor comes in, if I set this to 6, we will see that this unit will no longer service, that it won't take anything out of this receptacle. It'll just simply stop, right? Because there's nothing of priority that it can do anymore, because it wants to move from low to high. So if I place this again lower than my storage compactors around it, you'll see that it now starts to pull out of that and load into whatever unit I want it to. So in order for these conveyor loaders to work, the priority of your storage units needs to be lower than those. So what you can really do is you can just do a 1 real quickly, and then just do a 2 for this system, and then just make these a 3. So that way any material that comes in on the conveyor is going to be pulled out, stored in a box, and then when that box or that loader calls up the material, it'll be then taken out of the box and filled directly into that loader. Or if it's already in the receptacle, it'll just go from the receptacle into the loader. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this a 3, which means I want to make all of these a 4. So you're really just going to start low and then work a little bit higher. So now that this storage compactor actually has some stuff inside of it, you can see that the automation signal that's being sent out is now true, or green. You know, you can use that for whatever. So let's say I wanted to turn on this conveyor loader, but only once I have enough material in order to run it. Let's say we're doing a raw metal and we're going to run it over to a refinery. Rather than being all, let's go ahead and just do a raw metal, right? So now I have raw metal inside of there, and then if I select on the loader and I do raw metal, it should now pull it from here and put it in there, or anywhere else it has it available, I guess, in this situation. So this is a good example of why I have a couple of auto sweepers in here. It's because there's, you know, the more auto sweepers you have, the more tasks you can perform. All right, so I've sorted out everything, and unfortunately I just don't have enough raw material in order to fill up this smart storage compactor. I've only have 7,000 some kilograms yet. So let's do 7,300 real quick. That did turn that to true. And if I say raw metal, you'll see that it's going to pull from here and fill that one up. So in this situation here, we can see that once it unloaded a little bit of material, it actually turned off. So on the other end, I would need another smart storage compactor that's going to try to load up that material. I don't know. If you wanted to run a batch, right? So let's give this an out, right? It goes over here. We have a receptacle that we place down. And then maybe I put a little auto sweeper right here, which I could just rotate. Then we plug this stuff in. And then on this side over here, I'm going to use a memory toggle. Or I could just kind of place it up here. I mean, this is overly complicated. You probably don't even need to do this, but I'm just kind of showing one of the possibilities that we have. So out of the top of this memory toggle, what I'm going to do is run. So this is what the automation sequence looks like. Once this goes true, which I'll set to 6,000, we'll see what happens here. That then becomes true, turning on the loader. So we can see that we're now loading. And that even though that this one will go false, the loader will stay on, which means we're going to build up a batch. I got to make this receptacle here just a 1 so that I can just unload from it. Doesn't have to be a 1, it just has to be lower than this storage compactor. So you can see it's now loading up this compactor. And then maybe right next to it we have a refinery or something like that we run to another memory toggle so that we can run a big batch of that material. Not that it's necessary, but I'm just kind of showing you one possible use for the smart storage compactor. So let's go ahead and just throw a rock granulator up here, if I can, somewhere. So that will become true while that's running, and it will stay true until it turns off, which I think is something like this. All right, so I've added a conveyor loader over here, so once this machine runs, you can see it'll then kick it back out. The sweeper will pick it up, I guess, and reload it, and then sort that back into the automatic storage retrieval system right there. Let's take a look at the automation sequence here. We're gonna start with the complicated, right? Why not? We're nearly there. Come on, buddy. You can do it. There we go. So that just clicked on over, and that deactivated the loader. So now this thing is going to sit here and run for a while. And what I can say is, I want this to be continuous. So the neat thing about this is that the auto sweeper here can actually just fill up the rock granulator. again, we can use the priority system to kind of sort things out here as well. So here I have a duplicate doing some work. You can see him just smashing away on this. The auto sweeper continues to load this unit and unload all of the refined material and sand in this case. And the duplicates continue to run the equipment over and over again. So you can see that the system here is continuing to operate and operate well. And every once in a while, we'll see that actually get moved out. Here, let me go ahead and just put another auto sweeper in there, just so it keeps going. So you can see how this automation signal here is returned to false, except for that one little bit that's running the granulator there. So actually, this would not return to true until that was full again. So what this would be good for is not necessarily picking all the materials, but maybe only picking one material. Like you want to make a bunch of refined copper or something like that. So you pull all of that up there and then batch this together. I don't know. It's the automation system, so you can go as crazy with it as you want to go. Let's take a look at some less crazier examples of how this ASRS system can really, feed our base and really be quite useful. The very first example that I can think of is the fact that we can actually kill off a lot of germs. If you look inside of here, there is a ton of slime lung within this one storage compactor. Not to mention, since we're bringing everything into one spot, a lot of these germs are going to be passed around, which isn't that good. We don't necessarily want that to happen. And on a side note here, one thing you can do is you can actually deconstruct the floor beneath these storage compactors, and as the game is currently in its current build, these storage compactors will continue to operate, which is a little bit weird and cheaty, but you can take advantage of that if you want to. For this example, I'm not going to do that. Let's go ahead and deconstruct the rest of this building real quick. And what I'm going to do is pump this area full of chlorine. And just to simplify things, I'm going to get rid of this little arrangement down here because it's not really necessary. It doesn't do you any good. I just wanted to give an example. So we can see here that, I can put yet another sorting arm, maybe even another one. 4 of them. That one can't reach. And that one just seems confused. Okay, so I'm going to paint in a lot of chlorine to this area. And as long as you don't have carbon dioxide in here, the chlorine should just be the heaviest thing. So at that point, even if you do get some other gases, they can float above the chlorine up here, where it won't really do anything against, that's bad. Especially if you get the pressure high enough, you shouldn't get any of the slime emitting polluted oxygen, because that's kind of a thing that requires a certain amount of pressure. So what we can see is the amount of germs inside of here. Whoops, I must have painted it in with food poisoning. Well, whatever, it'll get destroyed. Good example, right? You can see that the germs are just getting wrecked. And that's because chlorine kills off germs. Oh my gosh, I painted in a bunch of it though. Let me try that again with a few less germs. Alright, so this area is full of chlorine. So what we can do is we can actually just put like a gas pump inside of here. And also a vent. So if we wanted to cycle the gas out or whatever and bring in more gas, we can make the entire environment chlorine inside of here. So there is space for that right here, here, and all down here. So what that means is if I come out here and I just dig up a lot of, slime and something like that, and I just want to transport a lot of that. Well, using an auto sweeper, I can pick it up, I could run it to a loader, and I can also feed these loaders manually so that a duplicate can run around and actually drop stuff onto this thing. So I don't necessarily need the auto sweeper arm, but in this situation it works out really good. I can take this rail, and just attach it to everything else and ship it in. Of course, I need power to that stuff as well. So I want to move a lot of slime. So I selected that. You can see that it's going to pick up and drop onto that. Now the problem is, look at all these germs that's being conveyed around. So what I'm seeing here is quite interesting. Since this is in oxygen, we're not really getting slime lung out there. However, if it's in polluted oxygen, I would think that would be increasing. Not to mention, look at all the crazy polluted oxygen that's bubbling off of that. What happens if I cover this? Ha-ha! Gotcha! However, that's not too fun, so here we go. So now I've got some slime that's being conveyed into the receptacle here, and now that's being delivered over here to a storage compactor. Now this storage compactor is you know, full of slime with slime lung, but you can see it's getting killed off automatically because it's in a big bath of chlorine. I like that. That works out pretty good. Now this game is full of things that we can actually automate. So in this case, let's go ahead and automate an outhouse. So out of this rail here, I'm going to go ahead and deliver some dirt. And then you just use an auto sweeper to fill that outhouse up. Boom. So in here, I'm just going to select dirt. So you can see the arms are now running, and they're just filling that full of dirt. And the toilet has now been filled up with dirt. So my duplicates actually have a place to go to the bathroom now rather than just, you know, make a mess everywhere. And then I would have a receptacle as well, and that will be for polluted dirt. So on the flip side of this, I can use a loader to take the polluted dirt away once my duplicates actually go and clean the outhouse. And then just take a rail here and attach it to the main line that's running back into everything here, so it gets sorted out. Alright, so here I'm giving a destination for the polluted dirt once I have some. I'll select it there. So the polluted dirt will actually come from the outhouse, and in this case it'll go through the ASR system and then get loaded up here. You could actually just go directly from that to the here if you wanted to. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a compost for this. Not everything has to be sorted and then delivered, but it is what it is, and there it goes. Alright, so as we can see, the outhouse here is now out of order and requires emptying. So a duplicate will run up there and they're going to maintenance that. And then at that point, however many kilograms of polluted dirt will actually get loaded onto this conveyor rail, run through the system, and then will end up here into compost. Now, in case you're wondering, the outhouse has a 1-to-1 ratio, so all of the dirt that goes into it will come out as polluted dirt, and all of the polluted dirt that goes into the compost will come out at a 1-to-1 ratio back into dirt. So this is a completely closed cycle system here, where the same dirt can be used over and over again. So if you don't want to run a bunch of lavatories, you know, and actually just kind of run that liquid back and forth and use up some sand or whatever, not that it's a bad thing, but you could just use dirt to run to a compost pile and back. One of the nice thing about a lavatory is that it gives you a positive water trade. So 5 kilograms goes in, 11.7 comes out. And then that can be run through a water sieve, which takes in 1 kilogram a second of sand and actually gives out, 20% of that as polluted dirt, which allows us to build up more and more dirt as we run that through the compost pile. So there's definitely a reason to use the lavatory over the outhouses, but in case you were wondering, that is a 1-to-1 thing, so I just figured I'd explain it. Oh, you didn't empty it soon enough, and Turner's nearly drowning in his own urine. Bam! Polluted dirt. The auto sweeper grabbed some of it, but Abe decided to grab some of it and run off by himself, so, actually he beat the auto sweeper. What a punk, man! I wanted to show how that was gonna work. And now, darn it, there's a bunch of polluted dirt with a bunch of food poisoning on it. Oh well, not a big deal, I guess. See how that worked and worked so well? Alright, let me try this again. See, you can't get there. Deal with it. So now there's some polluted dirt down here, and it gets swept up. Bam! And all of that nasty germy stuff, look at that, look at how horrible that is, goes up here, and then gets sorted out. However, it didn't kill off all the germs while it was on its way, but it did cut it down by about enough. It went from, last time it was over 1 million, this time it's 300,000, however, everything else got covered in germs too. This would be another good thing to put inside chlorine. Hey, let's go ahead and do this. I have a deodorizer down here, and deodorizers use sand. Many things use sand, actually. No, don't do that. Use a bridge. In on white, out on green. And then we go over here. And just have a receptacle. Under filtration medium, I'm going to pick sand. Crap. No power. And now, once I connect the power to this, so this deodorizer is automatically filled up with sand, and it's actually converting some of that to clay. So, once I go over here and I say, I could pick everything and just, it doesn't really matter. It actually would work, because all it has to do is just go back down to the same main line, and you get the idea. So you can see here, as clay is being kicked out, it's being re-entered back into the system. There it goes. Now what if I have several deodorizers? Let's say these are spread out throughout the base. not necessarily right next to each other. And then I have some more, you can see. There we go. Sand is now delivered to everything. Look at me, that's working really good. Let's go ahead and just dig up some more of this. I need more slime. So you get the idea. Essentially, we can just keep going and going and going until we've automated everything. And that's really what my ultimate automation challenge is about. It's about essentially trying to find every possible thing that we can automate and automate it. So this is one of the key elements that I need to have inside my base, which is that ability to store things, to sort them, and then deliver them to where they need to go without my duplicates, picking up everything and running it. Not to mention we can also take care of germs, by just running it into this giant chunk of chlorine. So let's do one last thing. We're going to run it to a kiln. So you can see that the kiln here is running completely on its own. So it's actually just taking in that clay, and it's also taking in coal. It's turning it into ceramic. Now this thing does consume electricity, so that's one of those things where you could try to batch it up, make it run with one of these smart storage compactors or something like that. Alright, so there you have it. That is one working example of an automatic storage and retrieval system. It's pretty ridiculous. The last thing I wanted to show you here is that you can select allow manual use, so these duplicates will pick things up and deliver them to the conveyor loader. And then that will then get fed into the system to be stored. So there you have it, guys. That is the automatic storage and retrieval system. Hopefully I can build this thing out within my ultimate automation challenge, and it'll be pretty awesome. So there you have it. That's pretty cool. And the madness of setting up all these conveyors is exactly what I'm looking for. If you guys want to load this up and play with it yourself without having to do all the setup work, I've put a saved file down there in the description below. You can click on that, get over there, download the file, drop it in your saved games, load this up, and experiment around with it if you want to. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little episode here of Oxygen Not Included. If I've earned your subscription, then thanks so much for that. Stay awesome, guys. Peace. Brothgar out.